All right, this particular session was labeled Moodle Automation. All right, you may have actually heard of it before as restrictions and completions. The idea behind this is that you can actually control the flow of the class for any individual student or any group of students on a load of different options. I mean, just mind-boggling load of options that you can actually do in it. First off, though, is one of the things that you're going to need is activity completion. Now, the activity completion is actually located in your administrative menu. So if you're in your one of your classes, right, there is the administration menu that should be on the left-hand side. You'll see where it says course administration, the most likely third one down, will actually say edit settings. Once you've actually gone into edit settings, all right, then you'll go down to a part where it says completion tracking, and you click on that one. All right, then the next thing you're going to do is under completion.
Completion settings.
Hang on a second. That's what you just
I
can't even
Course
say it.
completion? Is that it? Course completion?
It's the one that you just turned on.
Steve, all the way down. No, scroll down in the menu that you're already in. Move to the right. Move to the right. Roll, scroll, 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 scroll. All right. Completion tracking.
Okay, gotcha.
All right. So under completion tracking, once you click on that, you have the option of enabling it. All right. You want yes. Yes. Then you will click save and return to course. And you'll see that nothing has actually happened. All right. Now, this is something that actually happens in a particular assignment when you've actually put this into use. All right. Assignments will actually be finished, all right, or they'll be able to be seen as finished by the students. All right, so for this one here, the student can manually, all right, mark the activity as completed. Manually marking it will give them a blue check mark. All right. Now you have the option inside activities, all right, it says if you pick different ones, you can see here, these are actually grayed out because right now I have the student manually doing it. If I was doing it or if the student was accomplishing this in some fashion by, getting a better grade on it or something to that capacity, it would look a little bit different, all right, in which the course completion would look something like this. All right, this would be basically like a quiz. You can see here I'm editing a quiz. Down in the activity completion for this one, all right, I have the do not indicate whether it is, all right. Student can manually do it, or that some sort of activity or condition has been met that warrants it. Now with this, I could say that student has to view it, student has to receive a grade or complete it, student has to have a passing grade, or all available attempts have been completed. So if I actually went with this one as well, let's just say that I said that the student can retake this thing 4 times. All right. In those 4 times, if the student still hasn't passed it, you could say, okay, finally, you can consider it done. Kind of a strange one, but that is what it is. Now, you also have the expected completion date here, all right, so that they actually have to have it done by that time in order to get it. Now, does that mean that they won't get a grade for it or anything? No. It means it won't show up as completed, that they completed it on time and everything. But you can actually pick any of these options, or you can have the student pick them themselves. You can see if they pick them themselves. These, although they are check marked, they're grayed out, so they're not really active at the moment. They only become active when you say that it has to meet a certain condition. Now, The reason why we did that is because it's another resource in restrictions. All right. Restrictions is where a lot of your stuff's actually going to happen in order to move people in certain places that you want. Now, what are the restrictions? All right, basically it's to select groups of individuals who are deemed worthy. Now I'm putting in quotation marks, all right? So,
It's not me then.
mhm.
Would not
Well,
be
it definitely could be you. All right, it could be anybody. You literally can say that the only person that can do this is somebody with the last name of Fagan, and that's it. And anybody else who pops in and looks at it, it's not even there. All right? So you can use this for a variety of things. You'll normally see people use this on quizzes, but it can be on resource material as well. All right? It can be on entire topics. If you have an entire unit that you only want this kid to do, that's the only kid that's going to see it. So under this, you're going to set the criteria and stuff. All right, you can actually give access to 1, 2, or 100 people based on what's actually on here. How you do it though is in restrict access. All right, so we'll bring this one back over that I have. All right. Here's restrict access. Under restrict access, you can see I actually already have something in here. You just have this. All right. So for this class, and I want to pick one that's actually a little bit better, so give me just a second. Now this one is actually interesting because this one is in another class altogether. All right, you can see that I have activity completion and I have restrict access. This is a link. So I could actually say, I don't want anybody to have this link to go to this website unless you've done something I wanted you to do. All right, so here I just actually click on this. All right, as I actually talked with you, Thompson, earlier about it, this one here is actually anybody or anybody that's in a group. So really, the only people that actually can see this link are my students. That even means is outside teacher looking in. That is one of the choices. We'll actually talk about how you get to them. So you go through this, you're going to add a restriction. So here we are. All right. I already have this restriction in. I can actually add a restriction, or I can add one to here. The reason why I have this one in like this, as I'll show you if I take them out, there's no restrictions in here now. Ones I like to do is to add a restriction and restriction set. All right. But we'll have to talk about how each one of them goes about it as we come in. All right, so in adding a restriction, all right, you're faced with a host of options. Look at all those. You can use one, you can use all of them. You can use a variety of ones. They can go up, they can go down. I'm sorry?
I like the activity completion one.
Yeah, the activity completion one, all right, I'll show you over here, is that if there are certain activities, we'll actually start off with that. All right, activity completion. What activities that are actually currently on this particular page, all right, here is a list of them. All right, you may have more, all right, you may have less. I could say that a student actually has to have this particular progress thing completed. And I was like, this right now just says completed, nothing special about it. But I can say that it has to be marked not completed. All right, and I could say that it has to have a passing grade or that it must be a failing grade in order to move them to wherever I want them to go. Now, some might actually say, why would I want to say must not be marked complete? Because if somebody has gotten into something else, I don't want them in my piece of remediated material. Not that it won't help them, but they don't need to be in it, or I could say that if you got an A, I don't want this to show up because you don't need the help. Anything like that. It's loads of different things you could do. All I have to do is set that stuff up. Now, if I don't care if people know that there's a restriction on it, I'll leave this eye open. if I don't want anybody to see why they can't get in it, all right, I just close it. And that means that that particular activity becomes invisible, all right, until they've met the criteria, and then it just pops up. So I would actually do this and then hit save, and I'd be done with it. Now there are other options, all right. As you can see here, we just did the activity completed, all right. We could also actually do it by date, all right. On the date one, we'll close that guy out. We'll go for restriction, go for date, all right. That no one can actually access this, all right. The access is restricted and students must match the following. The date is from, all right. So from means when it will actually open up. I can actually set these dates like this, and let's say this thing won't open up until tomorrow, all right, and nobody can even actually see it. And I'd hit save. This means that this particular link would disappear until tomorrow at this time, and then it would just appear. Same thing can be is until. It's actually visible now until that date and time, and then it disappears. Those are really nice ones, especially when you're not around and you want. It's kind of like a way of cyberly handing out papers and stuff. You're like, here's an activity, and it's like, man, I'm not sure if this stuff got handed out when it was supposed to. Now you have a computer doing it, so you don't have 100% assurance, but it's a lot better than a human being doing it. Now grade restriction. The grade restriction on this, all right, we'll bring back over this one so you can take a look at it. I'll close that one, go in with a grade restriction. Now with this one, all right, I could pick the actual graded area, which this one is really expanded because you can actually control access to this based off of a category total. So like here, first quarter, so forth, if you actually scroll through these other ones, it's like, we'll say here, second quarter, all right, during the second quarter, if your grade, all right, is, well, we actually go right here, if it's less than 60, all right, you cannot get into this assignment. So what is it? Oh, this is one of those fun things, or things that are meant for enrichment. And I was like, okay. And it's like, the same thing can be said as I could turn around and do it this way. And it's like, your grade actually, must be greater than 60. And it's like, well, that's just the same thing, but it's actually just worded differently. Or I could say that your grade must be below 60 because this is, all right, meant as a remediation assignment. So you can go all different types of ways with this. And then again, with this, you could actually have multiple graded items if you wanted to. But that goes under the last one we talked about. So you can say, well, which ones you actually have to cross. Now, with that, we could move in here. And I was like, groups and grading restrictions. So under this one, we'll have a group and groupings. All right. The reason for this one is under this restriction is here in groups and groupings, is you could actually have multiple groups inside. We had one earlier, which is here. All right. Right now, this class only has basically 3 groupings. All right. So I could actually pick the IEP group and say that the only way you can get into this is if you belong to the IEP group. And I've just created a IEP differentiated assignment, and only they can actually see it. Or, in the same breath, I could actually do it is move it to everybody gets to see it. And that way it keeps people who are non-traily people out of it. And of course, the must and must not is like, you could literally do this. You could say, must not belong to any group at Trail. That means that the only people that can actually see this are you and visitors. And I was like, why would I want to do that? I don't know. Come up with a reason. Send me an email. All right. Now with that those two restrictions in there. The grouping one is you'd actually have to set up grouping, which that's actually possible, but you have to do that over in your group settings, and it's basically a group. A grouping is a group of groups, and it was like, what the heck? Yeah, and let's just say that your first block and fourth block are accelerated classes, and you want something that's for your accelerated classes only, then you could actually say, okay, this is only for the accelerated group, and you call that accelerated group a grouping called accelerated, and then you actually bring both those groups in there. So anything that has to do with accelerated, only they get to see it whenever it shows up. So it's like, yeah, there's like, wow, I didn't even know you could do that. It was like, there's lots of stuff on here. Profile one, this is nice. All right. If I go back into restrictions and I go user profile, I was like, let's see what I want to pick somebody based off of, I don't know, their address. Yeah. I can say only kids that live on, Main Street and this town get to do this assignment. Very true. Or what city they're from. It was like, hey, only people from Hamburger are allowed in here, or what? But really what you're probably going to go to is like first name or last name, all right? So last name, all right, contains, and you're like, I don't know, all the kids with, a burger in their last name. It will literally like, oh, okay, burger. All the burger kids are actually doing this. And the same breath too, you could also say that do not contain and so forth. And the list goes on and on of different things, email addresses and stuff. This is actually a good one if you want to give somebody access to an assignment like outside of school and you only want them to have access to it. So let's say there's like, well, I don't normally give tests outside of school, but extenuating circumstances, you could actually open this thing up and only have access to that kid. And that's a really nice one to have set up. Now, restriction sets. This is my favorite one. All right. So, sorry, I didn't go under level because not everybody does leveling. All right, but if you wanted to pick level under this, all right, you can actually go whatever levels you actually have in your grade, all right, and what exactly is that? Is in my particular class, as you work through stuff, you can gain things and move up a level. Like right now, I'm a rooster. I think I'm like level 3. Yeah, see, I get experience points by interacting with Moodle, and it moves me up. So, hey, yeah, that's another one that's going around. Is that you can actually set the restrictions based off of what level the students are at. So, if you did have one of those, one of the opportunities you wanted to give to kids who were like way ahead, and it's like, here, you can actually do this thing. You can actually say, hey, when you get to level 7, this stuff actually is made available to you. Now, restriction set. This is the very last one. This particular restriction is every one of these restrictions together. And what's nice about that is if I set the restriction set up, you can see that nothing really changed, but I get an extra box that says add restriction. On this second box here, I can go back in and start picking ones. All right, so I'm going to pick an activity under this, and I'm going to say this first one here, and I can come back to this, clicked on this date, all right, and said it's this one that belongs to this group, all right, and actually I could say that got a grade, that is currently got a grade in here greater than 60. All right. Now, to show you what this one actually means is that no student, all right, will be able to see this link. All right. Excuse me. No student, all right, can actually see this link unless they completed the weekly progress for March, all right, after this date, from this group and is scoring a 60 in the class.
And am I correct that those ands, if you wanted to for some reason, could become ors?
Yep, if I come up here, all right. Sorry, this one here, if I pick any,
Okay.
all right, it turns them into ors.
Okay.
So I could say, all right, nobody gets to see this unless you've done this, or you've done this, or you've done this. And this is the one I like the most because I can add multiple things in it. And not only that, but see how I have this restriction set? I can actually add another restriction set. Now by doing that, did you see this one pop up here? So it could be this restriction set, or it could be the other restriction set. And you could have restriction set upon restriction set and just sit there and all right, you probably won't. Most of us are going to go for like one or two things only because you're like, the other stuff's just psychotic, you know. And really, once you've actually started steering your kids into certain groups, all right, and the different activities, you usually end up with like 3 groups, maybe 4, you know, of ones, and maybe they've spread out a little bit, but then you have basically like 4 streams running together. And the course material, the nice thing is that when you do this, the supplemental material that goes along with it, like textbooks and this, that, and the other, you can actually grant access to certain things for kids who actually have lower grades based upon their competency level is actually lower. So therefore, you know, a 70 for them is like a 80 for everybody else. So if they score a 70, they get to see it. But old Joe over there, who should be pulling down 90s all day long, and if he gets a 70, no, he's not getting it because he's not putting the same kind of effort type thing into it. So you could do that. And with multiple restriction sets, it's like, hey, man, how'd you get into that one? Because, you know, they're not going to know. They'll know. They always know about which kid is where academically, you know, but they're never going to know why he's got the, you know, he's like, you're already there? How's that? I don't know. I just did the assignment like everybody else did because it looks exactly the same. You know, but you get to do all kinds of things. And it's something you'll build over the lifetime of your class. The big thing is whether the eye is open or the eye is closed, all right? If the eye is open, it's what they actually get to see. They're like, oh, I have to do this before I can get into this assignment. If it's closed, they don't get to see it at all until it opens up. Why should you actually use this? I cannot think of another way in which you can differentiate like this. And I'll tell you one thing, is Google's Classroom, while it is pretty neat, can't do this yet. All right, I know that this is the cornerstone of the learning management system. When you can actually do this, you can really build stuff on it. You can really get into self-paced stuff. All right, you get that gamification going on with it, and especially if you actually use it with your levels along with it, is as kids keep interacting, they want to get to that next level, It's like, oh, if you do, then you get this. If you do, then you get this. You know, and the nice thing is too, if you don't know, on your gamification levels, kids can earn points, and you can take points away. You know, not that I'm encouraging you to do it all the time, but that's pretty much it, guys. It's you know, this isn't a very long one and very detailed. There are a lot of things that you can actually do with it. I would suggest, you know, trying something small from the beginning, you know, like an activity completion type thing, or a score, which would be the grade on a previous assignment, you know, and start linking it to other things. Anybody have any questions?
You talked about groupings.
Yes.
How do you do groupings?
Good question. All right, I'll move back over here, and I'm going to be in Moodle for the grouping, and I'll go into my class here. I'll leave this part. Under groups, go to users, go to groups. As you can see, I have groups here, and then there's this other tab says groupings. So if I click on groupings, all right, I'm going to create a grouping. And for this one, oops. So I'm going to call it accelerated. All right. You can name it whatever you want to. All right. Now with this one, don't worry about putting an ID number in. Doesn't really mean anything. All you have to do is do that, hit save. Voila. Now, once that's actually been saved, you can actually go down here to the editing one. All right. No, silly, back that up. Sorry. Under this, right here where it says show groups in the grouping. All right, click there. All right, now these are my groups that I already have. All right, the groups that I've already made. All right, and I was like, for the accelerated group, I'm going to have 4, and I'm going to have IEP. All right, they're my accelerated groupings, my accelerated people. All right, now that I've actually done that, I can go back to groupings, and as you can see, I have these groups in my grouping. Now I can actually give activities for them, and it keeps track of how many activities I have where that grouping is called out in particular. So if I were to go back here to this particular one, and actually you can see here it says not available unless you belong to any group. All right, I'm going to go in and change this one. All right, so that now the restriction's set. Instead of saying any group, all right, on this, excuse me, I am going to clear that one out, and I'm going to go for a grouping. Now, I only have one grouping, so, you know, big choice, right? But when I do this, all right, it means that only the people who are in the accelerated grouping will actually be able to do it, and I just save and return to course, and as you can see now, it's actually hidden unless you're in the accelerated group. Now, that means that now if my third section comes in, this thing's gone. They can't see it.
So then when you make a grouping, there's not really a way to do it like for each kid, you're doing it by the class period.
Yeah. Think of if you're trying to do one for, if you're trying to do groups of kids, like a special group of kids, not a problem with that one. That's done in the same spot. I'm gonna make one change here real quick.
Well, it also says that
Sorry. Yeah. Sorry, I had to put that back. Yeah, because this is actually an active class. The other kids come in and go, "What happened?" Because I think literally that's the class I have on Tuesday. So go back into users, go to groups, all right, and under this one, what you're going to do then is to create a group, all right, and under this one, you could call it whatever you want to. These are my special people, all right, and you could actually attach a picture if you wanted to. No need to, but I've saved it. I have them here, all right. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight this one, all right. And I'm going to add or remove users. Now by doing that, I can actually come in here and I can highlight all the people I want, all right, and bring them in. Or I could go through and I could pick one at a time. Or if I use the control button while I'm clicking, I can click multiple kids and then bring them over.
And I feel silly asking, but I'm going to. If we make our own groups,
Uh-huh.
we give them a lesson, for example. They finish it. Is it recording that grade in the grade book for us?
Uh-huh.
Or do we have to like go say, okay, well, I have Bobby at 4th period, so then I have to physically go to 4th period and put that grade down?
The nice thing is that when you create an assignment like that, it does not care who it belongs to.
Okay.
And in the same breath too, it does not attach, like if you're doing a grade your 4 best assignments and one kid never sees this assignment because he's not in that group,
Right.
it's not counted against him.
Okay.
All right. So
It really wouldn't necessarily I'm thinking honestly, like, get a feel for them, and then I'm thinking like second week of September, regrouping my students how I want them, you know.
I did.
Okay.
And
okay.
and seriously, when I was doing it down there, just because I needed something to go with it, I went. I had Alpha, Bravo, Charlie,
Right.
Delta,
Yeah.
and I was like, "Why is that?" And I was like, "I could have went 1, 2, 3, but you know, I just threw a name in." You know, and it doesn't really matter. You could call it whatever you want to.
Well, and I'm
Yeah.
even thinking even just, I don't know, like even 1A, 1B. I mean, you know, like whatever it might.
Yeah,
turn out
because
to be.
it's really just for you.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
then it doesn't affect the, you just leave the regular 4 groups, you just add extra groups to
Mhm.
go with it, okay. Now,
Because when everything gets updated for like next year, whether he actually fixed this or not, it used to purge the names of your non-essential groups, you know, and you'd have to put the names back in. All the kids are gone anyway, so it didn't matter. You just do like that, add your 3 or 4 groups back in, and away you went.
if I would do this for like a quiz, and I have 2 different versions of the quiz,
Mm-hmm.
how would that go into the grade book? Like, would there be 2 different?
That you see,
Yes.
yes.
Okay.
What they see.
One.
So, case in point for, you know, I guess I could actually show it in here, is I literally could actually take this thing here and duplicate it. And let's say that it had questions in it. I could go in and actually remove questions from it or add questions to it. They still have the same name, and change who can actually access it, and it goes in the grade book, and it literally has the exact same name. You know, now Moodle recognizes it as a completely separate entity because it does it by numbers. All right, the kids never see it because to them they only have the one. You know, now you get to see 2 of them. Now, if it's hard to actually keep them straight on what's what, you know, you might want to try to find a different way of, you know, going around it. Mind you, like any kid, if they actually see a difference, you know, then they might get inquisitive about it. Like, why's Charlie's got a star on his? You know, I was like, why does this look like that? You know, and if you're able to keep them straight, which when I did mine, I was like, I was going, this is, you know, basically the more advanced. And so when I did that, they showed up in the grade book in that fashion too. So I was keeping them, you know, locked in like that. It takes a little bit of, you know, finding your own groove on how you like doing it. But once you do it, you're like, holy cow.
But it all just goes downstairs as history aid
Mhm.
for the report card or
Yeah.
whatever. It wouldn't be-
Because if you actually, yeah, that's the thing. If you could have seen my grade book the last year in social studies, if I printed out everything, like the teacher view of the student one, like, well, we're on page 7 now. What's up with this? And I was like, no, because this one only applies to your kid. This one to,
Yeah.
and that's the thing. When you print it out as them, they only see their stuff.